Hello, hello. Thank you for clicking on this video and watching. We've got something really important to talk about here. Now, a lot of my content, right, is you're probably watching this because you have anxiety, OCD, intrusive thoughts, irrational thoughts, images, all this shit, right? This is what my content's about. I put these tags in the titles, hashtags. I'm using these words, right? What I want to share with you is something bigger and more fundamental, more foundational to mental health in general, that does pertain still very directly to what you're going through if you have any sort of mental health issue. Depression, anxiety, OCD, right? We'll just call it the triad there, the big three that are all related to each other, by the way. This sort of issue, a lot of times, most of the times, and we do this so often with other things as well, is we zero in and we focus on the problem and we offer solutions to these problems. Um, and in life, this works really well, right? You know, if you have a solution, if you have a problem with your car, tire's flat, well, you get a new tire and you change it out, right? Boom. But with the human body, it's more complex. There's all these multiple systems working together um, within our own system, but then within the larger system of this universe and everything else that we're influenced by. And so there's so many things to account for. And that's sort of this approach here is I'm going to zoom out a little bit from the details of maybe how you look at this. And you know, I've gone on like Reddit forums and man, you see, and I've done this so much. This is why I've gotten to this place where I can talk about this. On these Reddit forums, they're so dialed in on these details of, let's just take ERP and how it should be done, the correct way, the right way, just the perfect way. Can you get it right? And they can explain it in detail and correct people that are also saying their way to do it. And they'll say, no, this is the right way. You got to do it. And then it comes to find out they're all still struggling with OCD and intrusive thoughts. So does it even matter? Does it even matter about the right way if it's not even helping? I'm speaking to you from experience of what's worked for me. And I want to frame this as a larger context of mental emotional health that everybody experiences. Every person experiences this. Just very similar to physical health and how our physical health functions. Everybody is not exempt from these principles or fundamentals. Same for mental emotional health. It's our how we think about ourselves and the awareness of thoughts, beliefs, emotions all matter. We all do it. And it all correlates to anxiety, intrusive thoughts, OCD, depression. Now, a lot of what I've been inspired, you know, you can sort of on one level find out what works, but then in my perspective, I've always wanted to find out what works and then share it with others. It's one thing sometimes to find out what works, but then not really know how to explain it to others or to help people. And and sometimes in my journey, a lot of times I've been able to feel my way through this and work it, but then when I try to explain it, I find myself stumbling and almost falling back into errors that I've previously gotten through. And so this has been sort of a journey for me. Is like, yes, I've overcome a lot of this and moving on, but now I want to help people. And how do I verbalize it? How do I coach it? How do I teach it? And this has been a journey for me. And one book that's helped me a lot that is not even about directly what we're talking about. It's about tennis, but it's called The Inner Game of Tennis. It's not really as much about um, the practical side, but it's more about the inner game that, say, two tennis players are going to be playing on a court. This could be any kind of sport. You see the ball going back and forth. Player hits it out of bounds. One player gets a point on a serve. Blah blah blah. Everything you see, right, in the physical. The inner game is the game you're playing in your mind. The tennis player is playing in his mind when he's playing that game, and how the workings of that inner dialogue, inner awareness, inner skill is affecting his physical performance. And that's in a lot of these concepts I'm going to structure from this book because it's correlated and matched so well with my experience that I've had in my life. That's like, oh my word, like to hear somebody like verbalize this in a different context, but allow me to just validate my own experience and what's worked for me has been amazing. The Inner Game of Tennis, I can't recommend this book enough. Pick it up and read it, and you're gonna feel the similarities and just the synchronicities. You're gonna feel the match inside of you, what he's talking about. Timothy Jennings, that might be wrong. Timothy Galloway, just like this. There's also one for golf. I haven't read that one. Timothy Galloway, fabulous book. But very similar to there, what's going on in here in the mind dialogue of the tennis player affects the physical performance. So too with our inner dialogue and our inner system here is going to affect how our reality performs for us. Or shall we say our subconscious performs. Now in this book, and it's kind of a simple way of understanding it. Well, I've talked a lot about conscious brain and subconscious brain, right? And he verifies these two somewhat by saying by self one and self two. So self one is the way it basically describes our egoic mind. Okay, we can say our thinking brain. And then self two is our automatic subconscious system, nervous system, body, right? And so when you pair these two together, you realize that most of our problems are made up. Most of our problems are just a misunderstanding between who we are. That's our egoic mind, this thinking brain, self one, wants to just over dominate, over control because it thinks it takes on a life of itself. And it just cannot do what your hidden brain under the surface, self two, can do for you. And so there's a lack of respect for it. There's a mistrust in this part of yourself. And I love just the fact that, like, if this resonates with you, thinking, calculating, judging, worrying, fearing, hoping, trying, regretting, controlling, jittering, or distracting, the energy behind these words, this is all energetic, but if you can feel the energy behind those words, is fear, distrust, lack. And that's all where self one, our thinking egoic ego mind, is living from. And that's the birthplace for dis-ease. It's the birthplace for anxiety, OCD, all this stuff. So I want to propose to you that we don't have to become an expert in OCD to overcome it, to move on from it. You don't have to become an expert in anxiety to move on from it. And in contrary, very much the opposite is you don't want to identify with it. There's nothing wrong with you per se, with the workings of who you are. There's nothing wrong with you. You are not your OCD. You're not your body. You're not your thoughts. You're not all this stuff. And so that is the freedom, and that's what we're working from. So what this basically comes from is that there are inner skills. And this comes from the inner game of tennis. We're going to correlate to here. There are inner skills that you want to develop, and we had these skills as children, and we got conditioned out of them, and we learned something else. Our self one, ego mind took over, right, and got us to where we are. It's a relearning of these skills that are going to facilitate again mental health and all of the benefits that come with um, more peace and ease in your mind and just being with what is. And so, fundamental first skill is really letting go of judgment. Letting go of judgment. And, very popular idea and truth is that most all of judgment is self judgment. Everything, and most of us are more aware of like what's wrong with other people than ourselves, right? We all our judgment is just projected from how we actually view ourselves. That's very fundamental to judgment. So you find yourself judging everything around you. It's coming from your own beliefs about ourselves projected out. And man, think about all the judgments and beliefs you have about yourself. Even related to OCD, I'm an anxious person. I can't do this. I can't this, blah, blah. All these beliefs about ourselves are limiting, and it's just not true. We just don't understand who we are. And we're not working from this mental place. And so all the judgments, self-limiting judgments that are based on fear, and a lot of times this can be from experiences, these can be belief systems we are taught from a cultural, religious, you name it, standpoint. We take them on as our identity. But judgments get our self one ego brain active, right? Because you're presenting a good, bad scenario that is survival based, because it's connected to who we are. And so, of course, our brains are going to be in overdrive trying to identify and play this game between good and bad. And that's all getting you into the energy of your ego, of your thinking brain, the self one. And that is going to be a large precursor and stepping stone to mental illness. And so, very fundamental. You can start to become aware of the good, bad thinking you have towards yourself in life in general. Let the ones on the outside towards people, patterns, cultures, beliefs, whatever behaviors you notice on the outside, let that bring you into yourself and say, how does this relate to me? What does that mean that I believe about myself? And start to become aware, have this awareness of all the ways that you are um, judging yourself and engaging this whole aspect of your ego, protective brain, thinking brain. Um, Letting go of judgments. And then, man, a big aspect to this, and we see this in any kind of sports performance. This would be number 2 inner skill in sports performance, is this over trying. Okay, so in the game of tennis, over trying to control your swing and to correct for any bad habits. Okay, you see this in performances. What's going to happen to performance when you try to correct it? See it in golf. Guys get all tense and tight and try to perfect their swing. What happens? Poor performance, poor shots, which leads to more frustration and more tight. And what happens? Your body gets more rigid, more tense. Your fluidity's gone. All that natural memory system you have already in your body and nervous system is gone, because you're trying to control all of it, and you can't perform when you're controlling. Performance is self too. Performance, your being is your natural nervous system. And so you are overriding it, which is not going to give you better results. And um, and this is how you just have poor performance in any kind of physical way, but also from a mental perspective. you're gonna have poor performance because you are over controlling, right? So the opposite of this is understanding that our self two, and I'm using these terms from the book, and I hope you can follow along with what I'm saying here. We can call it subconscious, unconscious, nervous system, body, right? All the things that you can't control voluntarily. It learns and communicates. We communicate to it through images and feeling. Images and feeling. And this coordinates to all law of attraction, Neville Goddard, living with the wish fulfilled, all this stuff you may be familiar with is all correlates to that. Your nervous system, your subconscious, it learns, it understands through feeling and images. And so let's go back to the physical side again as a parallel. Instead of over controlling and trying to judge your swing and make it happen in a tennis game, rather you get better performance when you give yourself an image. You imagine temporarily what you want your ball to do, where you want it to go, and then you focus on the feeling of what it feels like to swing the racket as opposed to trying to make the racket swing. Big difference. Same thing in our life in general is that we can communicate to this system and we can realize that this is our influence. This is the way we influence our brain and mental emotional performance is through images and feeling. There's a whole skill associated with learning to communicate that way. And you learn the difference between, oh, now I'm controlling through my thinking brain. I'm trying to resist emotion. I'm trying to ruminate, overthink, twist certain thoughts. Why am I having this feeling? Why am I trying to do this? Trying all this whole game we play in our minds about trying to get what we want. When you get this and it sinks in, it's going to take time for this to sink in. What I'm telling you is practiced, forgotten, practice, forgotten. This is the sequence. You're going to realize that you can just let go. You can let go of all the, remember, the thinking, calculating, judging, worrying, fearing, hoping, trying, regretting, all of that. That's all pathological. It's all disease creating. And you realize that, oh, things aren't going my way. I know how to be. And how to be is to be with what is. Things aren't going my way. That is an emotion, right? Behind that, a feeling behind that. I can be with that and just be with the way it is because I can't control it. And more would just create more tension. Just like driving a car that's flat, I'm not going to go on a road trip with that because that would be detrimental to my probably safety and my car's physical structural health, right? You learn this through experience. And you direct your attention towards influencing yourself through this visual, through the image, imagination, the visualization, the feeling. That's where you have the influence and you can let go of the rest. Okay? And really then again, letting another inner skill, number 3 would just be also just letting it happen. Letting it happen. And this correlates to the previous points is that when you're facing, let's go back to maybe why you're here and what you're dealing with, intrusive, irrational thoughts, this feeling, anxiety feeling, this feeling that your mind is not who you are. Man, what a just messed up feeling, right? I know exactly how you feel. It's like your mind is not you. These feelings you have, it's not me. These thoughts you have, I don't want them. It's this disconnection from who you feel you are, right? And you feel that resistance. And so, but when you're going through these intrusive, irrational thoughts, images, depersonalization, right? False memories, all this stuff. You feel it's not you. You don't, you, right? It's the ability to let it go. It's the ability to just let it be, because you start to realize that as you engage it and try to change it, you're just repeating this pattern. Repeating a pattern, it's only going to increase this disconnect. And so it's really an energetic shift that I'm presenting to you on how you relate to what you're going through. And how you relate to what you're going through is one of allowing and letting, accepting, versus trying to control, manipulate, coerce, change, right? To the overthinking, rumination. And this again is how you are needing to build trust in this deeper part of yourself, in your system, this system that is actually feels like it's attacking you. I get, like, how do you build trust? How do you build trust in a system, a mind that seems like it's attacking you, right? Like it's against you. How do you trust that system? To me, you have to understand that's not the system's fault. It's not your mind's fault that you're getting OCD. It's not a default in your mind's wiring, a genetic default, or some sort of, you know, thing that needs corrected somehow from external means or whatever, like, or medication or like a chemical. No, it's not that. It's you. It's the way you're living your life. It's the way you are. It's like I said, these judgments, this pattern of over trying and manipulating and resisting emotions and thoughts. This is it, and you can change this because you're doing it. You're doing it, and your mind is only responding to it. OCD, intrusive thoughts, anxiety, is a response. And as this sinks in, you can learn to respond differently to it. And you can learn to build trust back into your mind, trust into your system again. And this is what leads to self-confidence. Man, when you have OCD, you have very low self-confidence, right? Because you don't trust yourself. You don't trust your mind. But you have to come back to it. This is the process of letting go, learning the difference between over-trying, overthinking versus imagery and feeling, and come back and feel the difference. You have to experience the difference before you can really build the trust, right? But it's to truly build that confidence. But it's the direction of trust, and it involves letting it happen. Let your symptoms happen. That's a skill. And that all leads to the fourth skill, which is outlined in the book, which is about relaxed concentration. And this is really about just getting fully into your life in the most present way possible. All the little activities of getting up and getting ready for your job in the morning, going to work, engaging with your actual work behaviors and your coworkers, or being with your family, your children, this and that. Really, actually, just being there and being engrossed in what is happening in your life. So much with anxiety and OCD is that we're not actually living in the moment. That's because of all the previous skills, lack of skills I've just mentioned. We're elsewhere. We're fighting all these battles. And so the ability to sink into your life with this focus and attention, is also going to be very helpful for your well-being, to getting what you want to. So, man, I'm going to be breaking this down a lot more. Other videos. This is a kind of gross overview of this way. And again, I love this language. I love this language and this sort of like a fundamentals that really encapsulates what I've experienced, what I've been sharing in videos, and now I'm just kind of saying maybe some little different terminology and language that correlates to tennis, but everything relates to everything. you know. And so how I found this connection between our minds and our physical performance and our mind, and so it really correlates between our mental emotional health and also these inner skills. So what a great book. If you are interested in coaching, I have a link below in the description where you can book a session with me and we can go over more of this in detail, and even more and what you're going through and experiencing. I'd be happy and love um, to help out with that. But you can book in that link below and find a time slot. Um, Please comment below if you have any questions about this video. And thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe as well.